We wrote 8,000 articles. We did 400 YouTube videos, and we did like hundreds of photo shoots. So we just had this massive amount of content out there.
Welcome to the Mastering E-commerce Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Eitan Koter, co-CEO of Vimy. In an era of rising acquisition costs and increased competition, this podcast is dedicated to helping you drive sales, engage customers, and build meaningful communities so you can turn passive visitors into active buyers. Now let's get started with the episode. Welcome listeners and welcome to another episode of Mastering E-commerce Marketing. I'm your host, Eitan Koter. Really excited about our guest today, Michael Kleinmann, founder and CEO at Underwear Expert. But Michael is also an e-commerce expert. He knows the ins and outs about everything that's happening with digital media, e-commerce, subscriptions. Really excited to have you here, Michael. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Michael, what inspired you to specialize in men's underwear market and reinvent it with this lucrative industry with underwear and with Underwear Expert?
Well, I got into the industry by accident. I did not plan on getting into the underwear business at all. But it all started with Fresh Pair back in 2001. And Fresh Pair was an online retailer of men's and women's underwear. We had 150 different brands, 30,000 different SKUs, and it was, it was like a typical kind of .com success story where you started in your bedroom and then you sell it 10 years later. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then that kind of got me into the underwear business, and then that eventually got me into Underwear Expert.
Yeah. So tell us more about Fresh Pair in terms of that journey. You started from NYC apartment, grew this to a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah.
What were the major milestones that you can identify, right now, on that experience back then, and what are some of the lessons that you can share with us?
Yeah. So, Fresh Pair started in 2001 or actually in 2000, I think. And that was like the Wild West of the internet. There was no like Shopify and, all these things you have now, if they existed back then, they were like completely different, but you really had to figure out how to do things yourself. And, we had these two developers that were in high school that worked out of their garage. And that's how we started our website originally. Fresh Pair was interesting because we were the first one or one of the first ones selling this category on the internet. Amazon was selling books at the time. The brands did not have websites to sell direct to consumer. So we were one of the first companies that actually sold direct to consumer. And I can't tell you how many times I went to a meeting with the CEO of a underwear company and I said, we want to sell your product on our website. And they would say, well, we don't do business with websites. So it was like I had to educate the CEOs that they should do business with a .com company. It was really interesting.
But it was successful, right? How did you break through?
It was very successful. Again, I sold it 10 years after I started. We had 30,000 SKUs. That's a decent sized business. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you also, I think, invented or initiated the National Underwear Day. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so in 2002, actually, I was reading an article about Google and how, the algorithm changes and how it affects your search engine listings. And, in 2002, people didn't talk about SEO, right? Like it wasn't even, it was like the beginning of it. So I kept thinking in my mind that, we got all this organic traffic from Google. What would happen if it just disappeared one day? So I was thinking for months about how do I solve this problem? And SEO, whether it's 2002 or 2025, a lot of the basic kind of cornerstones of SEO have not changed, right? A lot of things, how you do things and the techniques and things, like a lot of things have evolved, but the basic premise is like you have to have content that is real, that makes sense, that talks about certain topics that people are interested in that will then come to your website and consume. And you need other people to link to your website. And, there's certain like basic things, right? So in 2003, I was very concerned about this, and I decided that I needed a lot of inbound links. So I created National Underwear Day for the sole purpose of SEO. Now, it turned into a huge thing, but that's my original thinking behind National Underwear Day.
Interesting. And what was the main lead generation activities or marketing channel you used with FreshPair?
Well, back then there was no social media, so most companies in that space at that time put their paid media budget into Google Ads. It was all like keyword purchasing. But National Underwear Day was interesting because National Underwear Day was a hybrid of PR and events. And, now we understand influencer marketing and the power of influencer marketing. But prior to people even using that term and doing what they do now, the vehicle that you used was public relations, right? And so National Underwear Day, I think if I had invented it yesterday, it would be like 100,000 times more popular. But back when I started in 2003, I hired some models off of Craigslist. We spent a very small amount of money, and we just showed up marching the streets of New York. And within a few hours, I had CNN following me. I did 20-something live radio interviews on my cell phone. And I had all this live TV that we did. And then every year it kind of got bigger until I was building a 50-foot elevated runway in the middle of Times Square with like a full production, like you were filming a movie, production set, and we were on Good Morning America, and we did like very large, like red carpet events, and it was a lot of fun. It became a very big thing.
So obviously so many things has changed during the last 2 decades, right? No social media back then. Focus more on keywords.
Yeah. I always wish social media.
Okay. Well, what are the major differences that you see in terms of running an e-commerce business? And probably the second part of the question, what's still looks the same?
I mean, it just keeps getting more complicated, but I think with anything, it's like innovate or die, right? You have to keep innovating, keep trying things. When your business is going like this, you have to try stuff, otherwise it goes down. You always want to go like that, and you have to just keep trying. It's like investing in the stock market. You try 50 things, maybe one works, but that's what matters. And you have to keep testing things, you try things, and it's not an easy business at all.
Sure. And it's like, how do you measure and how do you analyze, what's working and what's not?
I mean, it depends on your specific business, but I mean, measuring is difficult because there are like a million different tools that do it. And if you try to compare them to each other, nothing is ever going to match. So each business has to figure out what they need to measure and then have the tools set up so that they're measuring the right things. My business would be different from some other person's business. So,
and obviously there are so many different nuances, right? Like offline, online, and multi-channel, and marketplaces, and social.
That complicates it. But then, I decided in 2014 to go into the subscription business. And so Underwear Expert, after FreshPair, I started Underwear Expert as a content marketing site. And we were getting like 1 million visitors a month, just with the content we had. We wrote thousands of articles and videos and the whole thing. And then I decided to get back into e-commerce. And I didn't want to do the same old thing that I did before because Amazon has taken over, and I don't need to compete with Amazon. I always loved the subscription model, and I never had the opportunity to try it. So I was like, let's do subscription. I created a very complex way of doing subscriptions, and then we got into the subscription business, which it turns out is much more difficult than not being subscription business, but I guess now I'm an expert on subscription businesses also. So.
But being different is much, much more important than doing the same thing as others, right? So you mentioned Amazon as a
Yeah.
competition.
I mean, I had no interest in doing the same thing again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to compete with the brands that are selling direct to consumer, Amazon, all the marketplaces, and anyone can start an underwear company, tomorrow. The barrier to entry is significantly lower. You can manufacture stuff, even if it's low quality. You can make it quick. You can set up a website for like nothing. You could do it yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be like the most competitive company, but there are like hundreds of little brands that pop up here and there. So yeah, the entire landscape has changed.
I'd like to learn more about underwear. About the underwear expert, about the company. What do you
Yeah,
think differentiates it beyond the subscription model? Because I have many other questions around the subscription model that will come
sure,
later. Yeah.
sure. So when I was at Fresh Pair, we had different customer segments. And one of the things I learned is that you can't be everything to everyone unless you're Amazon. And I didn't want to, like, that just wasn't the direction I wanted to go in. So I always think that, if you're going to have an online business, you have to specialize in something. If you get too specialized, that's not necessarily good. It really depends on the market size that's available and how many and what your advertising dollars look like. So I wanted to focus on the gay niche because if I was focusing on the department store customer, it would make no sense. I couldn't.
Mhm.
I didn't want to start my own underwear brand because I just didn't want to start a brand from scratch. And I wanted to leverage all the relationships that I had, from like more than a decade of being in the industry. And, I've helped put brands on the map. And I know that those relationships are so unique that like people would help me out. So, and that's really what happened. I started Underwear Expert as a curated subscription. So in subscription terminology, it would be like a dynamic bundle. We don't think about it that way, but that's like the way I would explain it to someone that understands subscription. So every box that you get is different from every other box you get. You never get the same thing twice. We have 50 plus brands. We have a few thousand different SKUs, and we're bringing in hundreds of things a month, and we're buying small quantities. So there's always a lot of newness because the men's underwear business, at least in the fashion segment or the gay segment, is all about newness, right? So it's about discovery of brands and products and newness. So that was kind of the basic premise of Underwear Expert. We want to curate the best of the best in a certain price category. We know that with any subscription, the number one reason you cancel is because you have too much stuff. So we wanted to make a highly flexible subscription. If your waist size changes, if you hate the color purple, whatever it is, you can customize that at any time and change it at any time.
Mm-hmm.
And as Underwear Expert has evolved, since we became so big in this gay niche, we've brought on other products that the customer is also purchasing as one-time add-ons. And then over the years, we evolved Underwear Expert so that you don't have to sign up for the subscription. If you want to just buy the stuff that we have, you can do that too. But in the subscription, the pricing is a lot better.
Yeah. Love the strategy. So you had the relationship with the brands, you know what's even personal relationship, you know what's working in terms of the product itself and whatnot. The
Yes.
process of of zooming into the gay niche, this is something out of the gate, or you did some research, or you evaluated a few other segments, or it was something.
Essentially, if you're going to go after the really big brands, you're not going after the gay niche. All the specialty brands are pretty much in the gay niche. And I had all of these relationships already. So it happened very easily.
Mm-hmm.
And, it just kind of happened. And I think now, it's an interesting time now, because twice as many people are identifying as LGBT. So previously, a few years ago, we would have these conversations about, how big could the business get given the market size? And now, the market either got bigger or it was always that big, but no one knew it. So
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So the breakthrough was, I mean, the audiences probably they knew about the product, right? Or it was also a new product's experience for them. The breakthrough, you think, in terms of the positioning was the subscription model, the product's curation?
I think the breakthrough for people is that, if you live in a secondary city or a small town, you don't know what the popular gay brands are. You definitely don't have a place to buy them, and you may not want to buy them. You might be uncomfortable buying them. So for Underwear Expert was a discovery process for a lot of people. And what's interesting is, and I kind of did this by accident, but by starting as a content marketing site, in the 3-4 years that we were a content marketing site, we wrote 8,000 articles, we did 400 YouTube videos, and we did hundreds of photo shoots. So we just had this massive amount of content out there, and we would read these comments from people that, they didn't realize they were gay until they watched our YouTube video, or they started coming out because of our content. And I think our content helped a lot of people kind of grow up a little bit. And then they knew of Underwear Expert, even if they didn't know that Underwear Expert sold anything. It became part of the culture. Yeah. And the same way that National Underwear Day became part of the culture. I remember years ago, someone that worked for me came into my office and they said, National Underwear Day is now a question in Trivial Pursuit. It was I forget what the question was, but the answer was National Underwear Day. And I think if you can make it into pop culture, then, it's really hard to do it, but that's what you want to do with any brand, right? I think Underwear Expert made its way into gay pop culture and gay culture through the content we created, but we also were doing influencer marketing way before people were talking about influencer marketing. And in 2016 and 2017, we built a massive influencer program. So I think that also helped, grow the company in the early years.
It seems that there was a kind of a community building process along the way, right? I mean, fostering space for connection, for dialogue. What was the content all about? It was tell us more about the content planning that you had back then.
The content back then was about new arrivals, new products that were coming out, education about brands, and then education about, pairing underwear with outfits. So we had different topics, and then we had an expert advice column. So we had different topics, and we would try things and rotate things in and out. A lot of the content was about unboxing, an unboxing experience, which, you still do that with influencer marketing, but that's not the sole thing that people do anymore. But back then we were doing unboxings before people were doing unboxings.
Yes.
And since we sell multiple brands, it was about unboxing it, discussing the brands, the fit, how it makes them feel. And yeah, I think that put us on the map originally.
Yes. And you've gained substantial amount of followers, right, across YouTube, social media. Tell us more about the channels, the video channels that you're active in, and some of the numbers.
We have over 1 million followers across our different channels. Our YouTube is the largest. We have 300 and something thousand. TikTok, Instagram are a little less. We have a pretty big following. We reach a lot of people, and we always have. Underwear Expert kind of grew very quickly a long time ago, and we just kind of amassed this following, and we're part of the culture, which is really interesting.
Of course. I want to talk with you about the subscription experience, because it's a kind of a personalized subscription experience. And obviously, there is a lot of focus on the curation, right, of the different products.
Yeah.
How this process is working.
So originally, before we started using Shopify and Recharge and kind of off the shelf things. We architected something ourselves, which was an e-commerce platform plus a curation platform. And the curation platform was like completely architected from scratch. And we still use it today. We're actively developing it. It's the piece of software we put the most amount of money into over the last decade. The e-commerce platform we have changed a few times, and now we're on Shopify. And the subscription software we've changed a few times, and now we're on Recharge. So our tech stack is Shopify Plus, Recharge Pro, and then we have this middleware, if you want to call it that, which handles all the advanced features that those two platforms don't do or can't do or won't do. And it does a lot more than that too. In terms of creating a curated subscription, all subscription software does is essentially schedule your next box, right? Based on a frequency and a variant that you're purchasing. That's essentially what subscription software is. And then in the last few years, the subscription software providers have realized that they need to do more than that. So they have like a whole lot of other features that they provide. Recharge has a significant amount of features that makes it easier to manage a subscription versus just kind of using a bare bones package and doing everything yourself. And that's, I think, if you're going to run a subscription, Recharge is one of the most amazing software packages to use because of the vast amount of features that they have. As far as us, we're trying to curate based on more information than Recharge is going to kind of house. So our middleware handles, housing all the attributes of the customer, their entire purchasing history. We built a tool that allows the customer to preview their next box and make changes to it, and it all kind of works with real-time inventory reservations. Because if you select something, you need to be able to get that thing in your box, even though we haven't charged your credit card yet and we haven't created an order for you yet. So we have a lot of real-time inventory, kind of live swapping of products. If you change your attributes, then the preview and refine changes. And then there are a zillion other features that we built to allow a customer to kind of manage all the things that they would want to change within an underwear subscription. But then our custom software does a lot more than just that. So it does curation for any kind of apparel, sizes and colors. And I've always been told that the software is worth more than the whole entire company. So maybe someone wants to buy that. So we have this very advanced curation software, and then it also has our purchasing system, our forecasting. We built a custom forecasting system for the underwear subscription to forecast inventory across multiple brands. We built a massive amount of custom reporting, accounting, inventory accounting. It integrates to multiple third parties, the warehouse, Shopify. It's extremely sophisticated. It's definitely a multi-million-dollar software package in itself. That's really the secret sauce behind underwear.
And this is probably a great example of how do you foster innovation while keeping operational efficiency, right? That piece of software, you call it the middleware, or probably the backend or the brain behind the whole operations, is helping you out with forecasting, with inventory management, shipment. I mean, just making sure shipment are more, the efficiency, and that's probably a good example of how do you balance, right, innovation and operational efficiency in your business, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always tried to run my businesses as lean as possible. And, everyone says, well, do you have an office? Does everyone work remotely? How is the business structured? I mean, in the early 2000s, I set up my first business so everyone could work remotely if they needed to. Now, we always had offices back then, but I've always had businesses where you could do everything remotely. And we've always done things as kind of efficient as possible because I never wanted to run a business the way they ran businesses decades ago. I didn't want the overhead. I didn't want the red tape. I like to do things very quickly, like come up with a good idea, execute the idea, move on to the next one. I don't want to talk about it for 12 years and then implement it, and
Yeah.
that's not the speed of my brain, nor is it the speed of business today.
Yes,
So
you need to test, reiterate, and I like what you mentioned because you gained a market share and then you offered more products. So kind of this land and expand type of strategy that comes into place.
you just have to move quick, and you know what? You don't make the same mistake twice. You make a lot of mistakes, but you just keep learning and you keep moving on, and that's how I try to run things. So
Yes. Michael, what have you learned about customer acquisition over the years, and how do you see the current status? Your January 2025. How do you see the, let's
I
say,
think
ecosystem around customer
yeah,
acquisition?
I think customer acquisition is way too expensive, way too complicated. And if you don't think it's complicated or expensive, or if you think you can just start a company and immediately get customers, like you're just living in another reality. Um, it is so expensive to acquire a customer, and it is so expensive to keep a customer. And you need to have like everything working together, um, in a complementary fashion between your paid acquisition channels, your content strategy, your influencer program, your like just everything, email, like everything needs to be working together. You can't just have a couple things. You also need to figure out how you're attributing your sales because it's very complex to do attribution. And if you're in a subscription business, it's even more complex because a lot of the software packages will consider all of your renewal orders as conversions, when in fact you can look at lifetime value, but you can also just look at the first order that comes in and attribute that to your marketing dollars. So
Hmm.
there are a lot of different ways to look at things. Every business is different, and lifetime value is different, average order size is different. Ultimately, you need to figure that out in the beginning, and get all the channels working together, because people do not just see one thing and then buy something. There are multiple touch points over, days, weeks, months. Like it depends on your business. Maybe you hear about it on a podcast, you get an email, you see a Facebook ad, you see an influencer. Like it could be multiple things. So
So this probably, I mean, I hear this a lot about this holistic marketing approach, right? Which just different channels contribute to different, values and activities, and together with this is the difficulty to attribute, right? Exactly as you mentioned, how do you attribute some activity towards the other, and obviously that's a type of, I think the focus is probably going to be this year about how to implement this holistic marketing wisely, how to kill, failures, fast and just move on and try different things and
right.
attribute and measure in a very fast way. And obviously AI can help a lot here, and there's a substantial place for technology. And what are some of the future trends that you see specifically on this e-commerce subscription space, maybe particularly in the apparel industry? What's
Mhm.
next?
So with the subscription business, I think you have this additional dimension of cancellations, right? Like if you just buy something as a one-off from a brand and you have a bad experience, and you don't buy again, um, like it is what it is. But if you have a subscription where they're probably spending more money to acquire you as a customer because of the lifetime value, and you have a bad experience and you don't buy, I'm pretty sure that the company's losing more money
Yes.
than that one-off purchase from that other type of
That's
business.
churn, right? Churn was the churn rate. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think like in the first, couple orders, in the first experiences that you have with the business, it's really, really important that you get it right. regardless of whatever the pricing is, right? The experience has to be really like seamless. So,
Mhm.
if your warehouse is slow or your shipping takes too long or they get the wrong item or there's some confusion, it's the wrong size, like you need to iron all those things out. Um,
Yes, yes. And in terms of retention, obviously very relevant for subscription. What are some of the things that you do in that
yeah.
respect?
So I don't even think I answered the last question fully, but
Yeah.
essentially, in terms of innovation in the subscription business, it's one thing to have your orders kind of generate on the schedule they're supposed to generate, but then you have tons and tons of data. You have data about what they're doing. You have data about people who are active subscribers, but they push their next box further and further into the future. So they might be active, but they may not really be active. They may never get an order,
Hmm.
or they might get an order every 8 months instead of every 2 months. You have churn data. You have active churn data from people who are going through a cancellation process. Um, you have tons of customer service information that you have to kind of integrate and figure out what to do with. And then you have passive churn, people, credit card issues where the card doesn't go through. Overall, you just have tons of data, and each business is different, but you have to figure out how to use that data, and hopefully AI can help with different aspects of it. So from a churn perspective, we have a flow that people go through when they attempt to cancel. We take them through a whole bunch of different things that
Mm.
attempt to reduce the cancellation rate, and we've been able to reduce our cancellation rate by a large double-digit percentage since we did that.
Nice.
On the dunning process, retrying failed cards, we're right now trying out Recharge's new way of doing that, and the focus is to A/B test and then kind of get a higher percentage of charges that go through that originally failed. The jury's still out on that. But through each of the different things, you can use all the data and then create automations to increase or decrease whatever you're trying to do. I think
Yes.
that's where all the innovations are.
Yeah. So that's probably answered my innovation questions. I'd love to learn more about your retention strategy.
Yeah, so we use Klaviyo, and for email and SMS, and we have a ton of automations built in there. And I think what we're doing is unique. I mean, a niche product, niche audience. So the content that we push out through our email and SMS platform, as well as through our organic social platform, really speaks to newness and educating the customer about different things that we're doing or new things that we're doing. Um, that's there are a lot of other things that are like highly confidential, so I don't want to put them out there. But we there's a huge focus on retention,
Hmm.
and we use technology to do different things. And there are a few AI things that we're testing at the moment.
Yes. And Michael, what's your philosophy around about working with agencies or doing things internally? Some of the things that you mentioned, like the data, the analysis, the insights, the automations, is it usually done with your internal team or you outsource this to agencies?
Uh, Generally speaking, I hate agencies. I think they're overpriced, and they always oversell their capabilities. Not all agencies. I work with a few agencies, usually smaller ones, where you find really smart people who really kind of understand your business as well as you do. Um, but it's hard to find really good people. I prefer to do things internally because it's much more efficient. It really depends on what it is. A lot of things now you can do with software. So maybe there's a software package and there's an agency, but then there's some internal resource that's helping with it also. So
Yes, yes, got it. Great, Michael. So, how people can find Underwear Expert and maybe find you?
yeah, you can go to underwearexpert.com to check out Underwear Expert, or if you want to connect with me, you can go to LinkedIn and just search my name, and happy to chat.
Great. And we obviously share all this information in the show notes for the episode. Michael, thank you so much. It was really, really interesting. Wish you an amazing year.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to the end of this episode. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe so you won't miss any of our future content. Explore Vimy, the video commerce platform that includes live shopping, shoppable video, and social commerce capabilities. Visit Vimy at www.vimy.net. We appreciate your support and look forward for bringing you more valuable insights in our next episode.